there was at least one survivor still standing around this area. Can't see her, but it was a lady. She was standing waving from right at the edge. And yeah, there are still people as well up here. Let's just remember that as we're watching this and show that respect as we're watching. Alright then, so let's just go back and let's watch this in slow motion. We could just pick apart everything that we can see. There's 71 views, 71 different perspectives in this video of the collapse of Tower 1. So we'll just go through and analyse a few different perspectives. Okay, so halfway is about here. So quarter is about there. And the other quarter is about here. So really we're talking sort of just under a quarter of the building is going to fall down onto the rest, obviously. But let's just really think about the relative size here of this portion of building, which is, let's just say, is about 20% of the overall mass of the entire building is going to fall down on the other 80%. But there are still people alive in this section. It's not completely uninhabitable. Obviously, it wouldn't be long until probably everyone, unfortunately, would have succumbed to the smoke and the heat. But there are actually still people alive at this point in the towers. It's been burning for around 2 hours, nearly 2 hours, when this collapse begins. So let's just go through step by step, about half speed. Okay, we'll stop there. You'll notice there's fires burning on this floor here, all the way around the tower. This entire floor is engulfed, and you'll see now the fires that were burning on the floor have been forced out of the windows, which is why you see a big ball of fire. It's not because of some kind of explosion event going on that's causing a huge fireball. It's just those fires that were already burning and being forced out. And the next thing that's quite interesting is we talked about air being forced out. We talked about this top part of the building, relatively small compared to the rest of the tower, but it is just falling vertically downwards. It's not toppling over. For whatever reason that happens, obviously all of this material, all of this structural steel and everything that's below it in its way, the entire building, all of its columns, all of its steel, all of its concrete, everything has to be removed. It has to go somewhere. It has to be destroyed. And we're going to see as we go through the video, we're going to pick apart how does that happen, in what manner is it being destroyed from what we can see. And now these clouds, these dust clouds, are getting bigger and bigger and bigger into this mushroom shape. Now here, this is very, very fascinating. You actually see over here this huge section of perimeter columns, most of them still connected together here, just being flung out of the mushroom cloud that's developing as the collapse progresses. Yeah, yeah, so it's somewhere there, it's somewhere, it's obviously the clouds obscure the view, but this section of columns is appearing. But if I look on this side, another interesting thing we start to see is high velocity expulsions of the same material we're seeing everywhere, which is the dust. So according to ChatGPT, which I'm just doing a quick prompt just to make sure I'm correct with what I'm saying. So the 9/11 Twin Towers dust cloud was basically pulverized building materials mixed with toxic combustion products. But it's not so much what the cloud is made of that interests me. It's the manner in which this dust is reacting as the collapse develops. Look over here in this area. Look how, like there. So here's a good example. We just saw a very fast ejection of this dust that we're looking at. Incredibly quick. Let's look at it again. I'll keep going backwards and forwards to show. And it's hard to see because of the video quality, but this is happening everywhere, all along this side of the building here. It's like a line of very, very, very fast ejections of dust. Now, as I said before, the tower is falling in on itself. It's not toppling over, it's falling in on itself. So everything beneath it has to disappear. It has to be destroyed somehow. But we're examining from the way the dust comes out of the building, which really, as we've just seen, is the building. The dust is the building, or a large part of the building. The steel is being thrown out. The perimeter steel is being thrown out, the perimeter columns. And I've just talked about this in another video, how most of these perimeter columns are still intact. It's just that their connections have been severed somehow. And so they're being taken apart like Lego. And during the collapse, that's what's happening to most of the perimeter structures. It's just being disconnected from itself, and all the little pieces that are put together to create that perimeter structure is being either in chunks or individually being disconnected. That's what we're seeing. Look at that carnage, especially on the right hand side there where it's visible before the cloud just covers over. Focus on the antenna to start with. It leans to one side. See it swaying there, sort of side to side. And it seems to move first, doesn't it? The rest of the building's still standing, hasn't started moving just yet, but the antenna moves slightly early. And then a sort of wave of destruction begins on all sides of the tower. You just watch the dust as or the smoke just violently starts to push out as that antenna starts to move. Now let's look over here. Now focus on the ejections. Several very fast ejections of building material. This is a good angle for looking at those explosions. Violent explosions, very fast, very sudden, and also happening at the same time. This is quite an interesting one. Let's look over here. I'm going to focus on the perimeter structure for a second. You'll see in this area so this is obviously where the plane impacted, around here, and as the building starts to fall down, you can see the motion there of these columns here are being bent to the left and disconnecting. And so look now on the right hand side again. It seems to be this right hand side that draws a lot of attention. I think it's because there's too much smoke on the left to see anything really. Keep looking and just watch those expulsions of material. even at this point here. So the dust cloud sort of caught up with this bottom area that we're looking at. But you can still see these continued expulsions of dust. That is the destruction of the tower beneath the impact zone. You can still even see lights are on the floors, so you can see these little sections of light just coming through from the floors. Lights are still on. It's just like a normal tower beneath it. If you were sort of on one of these floors, might be a bit of smoke coming through the air vents, but it mostly would have been it would have been intact structurally anyway. Yeah, this is a very sudden event that occurs. Expulsions of dust riding down the side of the tower, all the way down the healthy part of the building. And he just goes all the way down. Focus on those dust expulsions. Explosions. It could have been caused by explosives, or it could have been caused by some kind of massive amount of pressure being released as the tower falls down. As the floors are collapsing on one another, the air is escaping through the windows, and that is taking with it all of this dust. So there's multiple things happening then. So the air is being forced out, but also the building materials are being pulverized. And the pulverization, assuming that the only energy involved here is gravity, then gravity and kinetic energy must be what's dustifying the building contents. And there are some people who look at these areas here. So there's one over here, and then there's one over here as well. So let's just look. You can see, I've not drawn those annotations in the right places, but look there and look there. You can see the expulsions of matter happening way down. So the floors are collapsing around this point, because this is where the top of the building is, assuming the top of the building is doing this. It would be up to around here at this point, but we're seeing that effect in just a couple of places. And that could have been explosives going off, or it could be that same issue with air pressure being released from elevator shafts and finding their way. This released air could be finding its way out, potentially these specific areas for whatever reason. It's a very dividing subject, this, and a lot of people have their opinions, but no one can really know what happened, because it's all gone now. Much closer view of that remaining core remnant. Could there have been people? Could there have actually been people in this part of the building still when it was falling? You can see all the different levels of the floors, these lines of the floors. You get a sense of the scale of what you're looking at here. These are floors, so a person might only be like this big, as big as that little blob. So that could be a person. That's probably too big anyway. A person would probably be about that big. It's just standing there. Can you imagine being there? And you wouldn't really be able to tell, because there's no video of this that's high resolution enough to tell. There might have been people in that area. If that was a stairwell, it could have been a stairwell. Here's another view of the core remnant. Each line is a floor, or was a floor, where a floor would have been, and there's a large portion of it here still connected to it here. Here's the core columns. I think there were 47 of them. So here's just 1, 2, 3, from what we can see, 3, 4, 5, 5 or so remaining core columns standing in this section of the core of Tower 1. It sort of shifts to the right, doesn't it? It sort of remains where it is, it kind of dangles a little bit. Okay, oh, this is interesting as well. I don't think I've noticed this before. Just look to the left here. Something's detaching. Ah, I think it was standing up before. Because I did think, what is that? It's horizontal. No, it's a vertical. It's a vertical. So it's somewhere around here. It's vertical. It's just part of the core, isn't it? It's just like what we're looking at. But it's actually sort of collapsing to the left. It was like that, and then it fell like that. These 5 or so core columns, all at the same time, follow the same motion, which is to the right, shifts to the right and then down. Make of that what you will, but something happened to that structure near the base, must have done. And it must have happened simultaneously for it to just slide. Make of that what you will. Here's another perspective of the core remnant. There's all these steel columns just dangling. I think this image here is just it's so like dystopian, isn't it? It's so horrific. It's just death. I've asked AI to help me understand what we're looking at, and it says the stuff hanging off the core columns is likely a mix of floor truss remnants, so the open office floors. They were supported by the steel trusses that spanned all the way from the core to the perimeter structure. So obviously, as the floors were ripped off the core columns, parts of those may have remained. Okay, so this clip was taken from the Hudson River, and it leans to the right. You can see clearly. So here's the tower. And then if we draw some lines, clearly just look at that fire there starts to fall to the right as you're looking at it in this direction. Which is why from the other perspectives, which was looking at the tower from this direction, seemed like the antenna was falling downwards with a lot more speed than it actually was. But if we want to really analyse it, did the antenna move first or did the building move first? I still think there was a bit of motion of the antenna that occurs just very slightly for the tower itself, which indicates that there's some kind of disturbance happening on the internal structure before the perimeter structure. Maybe, possibly, what could cause that? Well, the tower collapsed, so the core gave, if the entire thing's going to fall, the strongest part is the core. So the core has to fail first. It has to. The perimeter structure fails, the core will still keep the building up. I mean, we know the perimeter structure failed. It failed the minute the plane hit the building. Parts of it failed. But the core is strong enough to hold just this part of the building up here. It's strong enough to support all or most of the perimeter columns, even if they were all to be cut. If you took a giant saw and just cut through all of the perimeter columns all the way around the tower would still stand. The core was that strong. It wouldn't be safe, of course, and in high winds and things like that, it would potentially, there'd be catastrophic damage inside, but the tower wouldn't collapse. The core was so strong, which makes sense as to why the antenna starts to move first, because that means the core at that point failed, and when the core fails, everything else is going to come down with it, because that is the root of the building's strength. What I mean by look at the core is look at the antenna, because that is sitting on the core. So if you want to analyse the core, the failure of the core, look at the antenna. Look at the motion of the antenna. There is motion on that antenna before before the actual building starts to also rotate. So the core is failing. Right at that moment, you see that tiny bit of motion there. Keep your eyes on the antenna and look at the building itself. It's not moving yet, is it? It's still intact, but the antenna is moving. And the moment of failure, the point of failure for the perimeter structure seems to be at this level here, which is right around where the plane impacted, so makes sense. That's the weakest part of the perimeter structure there at that point. And that's where it starts to tear away and fall in on itself. And then the explosions of dust and debris from the windows beneath the impact zone. Alright, so that does it for this video. This has been Tower 1, an analysis of the videos of the collapse of Tower 1. I think the main things I want to take away from this, and hopefully you as well, from observing it with me, is that for the tower to collapse vertically on itself, obviously the healthy structure below has to be destroyed, has to be removed, and the expulsion of very rapid expulsions of matter all along the side of the building, all the way down, is the destruction of the tower beneath it. That's the result of it, is that matter has to be destroyed, it has to be removed, it has to be blown up. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to say anything there, I'm just saying that's what happened, because you can see it's happening. And those actions could be caused by gravity alone or by something else, but we don't know. No one will ever know. But yeah, so hope you enjoyed that video.